We are going to jump right into the word genocide, which is, do you have any problem with that word, telling children what happened was a cultural and literal genocide? Ladies, you were shaking your heads.
There's no problem with telling that to children, because children have to understand. The same way that we tell children how Jews were killed in the Holocaust, we have to tell children that their people were also killed during this invasion. And it's something that children have to understand, because children don't understand, you know, they don't understand that people actually existed here, you know, and when they get to knowing that people actually died here, it's totally different, and it's new to children. It's new to children to know that their own people were killed.
But do you wait a minute now. Up to a point, I agree with that. But again, my concern is not to go from one extreme to the other. The majority of the casualties of the native populations were caused by disease. That was entirely unintentional.
Yeah, but there were European diseases.
And the Europeans took syphilis back to the old world. There was a little of that.
Well, it was a little give and take, you know.
Well, but however, the effect of smallpox on the Western Hemisphere was far greater. But then on the other hand, the Indians introduced tobacco to Columbus, which he took back to Europe, and probably killed 100 million people since then. All over the world.
Oh, but we can't blame tobacco.
No, and I'm not. And that's my point is that this use of the word genocide or Holocaust, you have to be careful here, because that means a mechanized, intentional slaughter. And we didn't have that in the situation in this hemisphere.
And I do believe it was an intentional slaughter.
It was expansionism.
Exactly, and exactly. They were acquiring lands where people already existed in those lands.
Yeah, but the Aztecs did the same thing. The tribes here made war on each other.
I'm not going to romanticize on my people. You know, so I know what my people were.
Yeah, I understand.
And I understand that.
Fine.
But I also have to recognize that there was a foreign people that came into the land of my ancestors and killed them. My ancestors are all the people from the Americas, from the tip of Alaska to Tierra del Fuego.
Because the various tribes came into the lands of other people, made war on them, subjugated their cultures, even committed human sacrifices.
But
to say that just because the Europeans,
I don't think we should get into
and just because the Europeans came from across the ocean doesn't make their crimes any more.
Okay, but it doesn't make their crimes any less.
That's fine.
We're also talking about not sugarcoating the facts, okay? Yes. And I think that we need to present the facts as they existed. And the fact is that there were entire peoples who died because of diseases, because of the conquest. And I was born in Cuba, and the entire indigenous population of Cuba
no longer exists.
Was decimated, gone completely.
But it was disease.
But it was disease.
There were a lot that were brought in by the ships, which was understandable.
What is the psychological impact of telling children? I mean, I just fear that it will be like there will be, again, a hatred of the European.
I think, you know, kids understand this. Kids understand this. And if you go into a kindergarten classroom, there's a song that kids learn. And I think this is something that should be learned by the children. There's a song that goes, 1 little Indians, 2 little Indians. And the song is supposed to stop at 13 little Indians and no more. Why is the reason that song's taught to children?
Is
Why?
That being taught in
because
school?
Yes, it's still being taught in school, because that represents every time they killed our people, they hung them and burned them under greenwood in groups of 13, representing Jesus and his 12 apostles. How can we sing a song to children saying 1 little Indian, 2 little Indians, that represents the slaughter of our own people? I mean, we have to understand that also.
This goes into being informed. I didn't know this. You know, I didn't know that that's what it tied in, and that's very interesting. And if it's so, it definitely should be taken out of the books. I mean, they shouldn't be doing that.
Absolutely.
Because it should be more positive. Going back to the genocide of business, though, when I read, I don't read that a lot of these things were done intentionally. When we sat down and I asked you in terms of your own background, and you said, well, you've been here. Well, your people were here from someplace, and you said, well, they came in with the orange grove, or I misunderstood. You said they came in, and that's what I was trying to do, because we are a migrating people.
Okay, you know, going back to the history of my family, you know, I consider myself being a Mexicana.
Yes.
Okay, and I consider myself being a Mexicana Chicana because my family always came from the region of San Fernando. Now, my family, yes, of course, we have different bloods in us, but I have to recognize my indigenous roots also.
Yes,
you know?
And I do with pride. I do with pride, because I know it was a survival and it was an assimilation that went on with the cultures. Most of the people look at me and they say, oh, you got green eyes, you must have a lot of European. Well, I don't know, because I don't have any other but Hispanic surnames on my lines, and I go back 500 years.
But that's understandable, because when the European came, our people were given European last names because we became their property.
Yes.
So that's understandable why so many people have so-called Hispanic last names, of course, because we became their slaves. But just the way the Africans became on the East Coast, they have last names as Smith, as Jackson. You can find.
But that's even more reason to embrace it.
To me, no, because I became someone's slave. My family became someone's slave, and my family became someone's property. That's not more reason for me to want to embrace it.
But it didn't happen. I'm sorry.
That's not, no. Number one, I don't want to be put in the position of defending the Spanish of 500 years ago. They really have nothing to do with me.
You're Italian.
And my people didn't come here to the early part of this century. I also want to talk about America today. How are we serving the country today? We are a multicultural nation, and that is wonderful in so many ways, and I love the variety. It also presents us with some problems. How do we handle this? Do we teach the Hispanic kids history from a Hispanic point of view? Do the same thing with the Armenians and the Koreans? What about the American part? I want to have an overall American culture with all the proper inflection and the proper variety in some sort of balance that works for this country. Actually, my viewpoint is I'm Italian-American. I could be proud of that. The American part is far more important to me. And my concern is the country, not Italians or foreign nationals. And I want the country and the kids to be taught in a way that just gives us
the fabric of America.
I don't feel
Absolutely not.
I don't feel.
Go ahead.
As a foreign national, just because I call myself Mexicana or Chicana and I was born within the boundaries of the United States, I don't think that makes me or my family foreign nationals. Even if my family from Mexico were to cross over right now, I still don't consider them foreign nationals, because we still have our deep roots in this country.
That's not what the Mexicans tell the Guatemalans when they cross into the country.
Well, but I'm not defending the country of Mexico. I'm not defending the country of Mexico.
American in general discussion means a citizen of the United States of America. Okay? The people of Mexico are not Americans in the sense that American citizens say that, just as we are not Mexicans just because we were born and raised in North America. So you have to be careful of your terms, and you have to give credit where credit is due. Observe certain realities, and then above and beyond that, state your case.
We're talking about two different things really here. We're talking about a national identity and what, quote unquote, being an American is, and how to teach that historically. And historically, it's been a very monocultural perspective. It's been taught very Eurocentrically.
Exactly.
And the other
in my history book, it used to, I remember there was just one sidebar on the Trail of Tears. It was this big.
Yes.
And had a little drawing of Indians traipsing the snow, and they looked very sad.
Yes.
And, well, that was it. You know, so, I mean, how are we going to factor more of that history with the European history?
Well, Chris, today you have a little different problem. You'll get 3 paragraphs on World War II and what it meant to American history, and you'll get 6 pages on something that has now become overemphasized and politically correct.
We will be back with more politically correct or incorrect Cafe California as we discuss how best to teach history. You were going to say something.
I was talking about the issue of cultural identity.